all as you run through. Oh, look at the state of Arizona, one of my favorite states. You know, my grandfather was from Yuma, Arizona, and I thought I owned the water underneath it. John McCain's still a senator there. Are you a senator, John McCain? Yeah. And Janet Ann Napolitano used to be the governor of Arizona before she became the Secretary of Homeland Security. Yes. Well, there's what's known as the Gulf of California right here. Yeah. Now, this is Phoenix, okay? And look at here. From here to here is 250 miles. Yes, you see that right there. But if you went from here to here, look at it's 250 miles. Oh my gosh. And I had planned on putting a metal smeltering facility there that used the actual water from the Gulf of California to cool the metal because I wanted to recycle all that metal. But it turns out that there's a desert right here in Sonora. Yes, on the United States side. Yes. But there's one over here too on the Mexican side, isn't there? Yeah. Now, there's always a big question, where do I put these solar furnaces? Do I put it on the American side or the Mexican side? I haven't had a lot of cooperation with those in office in the United States, and the thought is, well, maybe I won't put a fucking thing in this nation. Now, if I considered the NAFTA agreement, this right over here, this Sonora right here, what if I put it right there? I mean, if we looked at the approximate depth, yes, of the actual desert, and I'm thinking since it's on this side and this side, see that right there? Yes. It might be better to put it on the Mexican side. Oh my gosh. Then I could import into the United States because of the refusal of those in office too. I know Phoenix would like to have that fresh water, wouldn't you? Put a little solar furnace right over here on the American side or the Mexican side. Which side am I going to put it on? Now, let's say I emailed the sheriffs in Yuma, Arizona, and I said, do you know about Edward Budnick's ownership of any property where he died 3 months after I turned 18? Yes. And my grandmother, Clara Holst Budnick, yes, former resident of Clallam County, graduate of Roosevelt High School, daughter of Verna and Elmer Holst. Thinking I'm missing some trees right now. But anyway, let's say I emailed them that my sons are being held hostage, and I decide to sue every sheriff in Arizona for having knowledge of child abduction because it happens to be federal legislation. Now, I know I can affect the economy of this nation in ways that you never thought of. Let's say I didn't do anything in the United States and I did everything in other nations. And then I took all that money and spent it someplace else. Now, when you think about how. Sounds like a mean thing to do. Now, this estate of Edward Budnick that I should have gotten notice as an adult grandson. His actual biological father, Paul Douglas Budnick, didn't get notice of it. I had done the research that there was a guy named Cheney, Alton Cheney, that was the actual representative of the estate. Is he in any relations to Dick Cheney, the former vice president of the United Nations or United States? Yes. Could you call Dick Cheney and say, do you have a near or distant relative named Alton Cheney? And did you know that the United States was going to take all my water? Now let's say I found out, okay, that Dick Cheney, former vice president of the H.W. Bush administration, or was it the George W. Bush? Do you remember who the president was that had Dick Cheney as a vice president? Yes, it was George W. Oh, could you call the Bush family and find out if they have knowledge of what Dick Cheney did know? Because Alton Cheney was of actual relations. No. Exactly how much water did you use over the last 25 years? Because my father, Paul Douglas Budnick, the deceased, one night had told me that my own grandfather, Edward Budnick, had crossed the desert, and considering I was 18 in 1988, I think he was born in, might have been, well, 1900, he would 1916, approximate. I'm sure somebody has some knowledge about it. Well, Bush family. Oh, former President George W. Bush. Could you call your former Vice President Dick Cheney and ask him exactly where's my water? Now, I'm not getting any cooperation from those in office about returning my sons to me. And I know I was wanting to prosper the nation, but when the nation doesn't want to prosper me, it causes me to think that. Now look at right over here, Yuma, Arizona, right down here in the corner, right by the Gulf of California. It's above 90 degrees for most of the year. Is that right? Average July temperature. Now let's see here. Average January temperature in Yuma above 48. Ooh. Average yearly precipitation. You know, when you make these solar furnaces, you want to put them in a desert so that it's hot most of the year. Now, I well, what do you know, Bush family? Um, you do realize that you're individually legally liable for child abduction laws. The kidnapping class B felony. Is there some? Ooh, mhm. Now, this desert scrubland with grazing. Has anybody done an approximation about the amount of sand in some of these locations? You know, as much as you wouldn't think that it's important when making glass, especially these very high temperature glass, yes, the more sand you have, the better it is for you. Because at those temperatures, it takes an immense amount of sand. Now, you would say I'm not a scientist, but let's say I boiled up some sand at 500 degrees. All right, it may or may not melt. 1,000 degrees. You can melt dirt at 1,600 to 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit. You heat it up to 2,000 degrees. When you increase the temperature of the sand, does it increase the quantity necessary to manufacture the glass?